So this old building was originally built for livestock, milking stanchions and hay storage and all kinds of the accoutrements and mess that comes along with livestock. Then my dad and I used it to repair trucks and logging equipment for quite a while. Now it's morphed into my construction, blacksmithing, YouTube filming shop. So come on in. I've been wanting to give you a tour. I think we've got it cleaned up enough that nobody's going to get hurt. This shop tour is a little hard for us to put together because there's so much stuff going on in here. So today we're going to try to point out some of the less obvious aspects of the shop. For instance, I'm standing on a gravel floor, right? Well, not exactly. I'm standing on an 800-pound upsetting block. Can you see that? That's a flat portion of the counterweight off of a forklift. The whole piece is about 4.5 feet long. It tapers from 6 inches thick at the edges to about 16 inches thick right here. I can upset big heavy pieces of iron right here on this. It just lays there, not causing any trouble. One of the things that it's going to become really apparent is this place is full of antiques and odd tools. I love them, and they just sort of show up here. I guess people have identified this as a repository. We may point some of them out now or in the future, but they're everywhere. I mean, this is not really an antique, but that's pretty cool. You can turn your wood stove into an oven. I sometimes think I ought to take this out. I used to build a lot of wood fires here in the wintertime, and we would cook on top of it. But since I put the new big forge in, that thing is such a nice central heating unit. I haven't run this for 2 or 3 winters, but I can't bring myself to take it out. So this is the grinding area. You know, Burr King's a great tool. That's a 3M polishing wheel. You got to have one of those if you're going to do metal work. It'll just polish things up so nice. This is that 2x72 that I used for 5 or 6 years. It was shop built by a friend of mine, and it was instantly made obsolete by this thing. This, I think, over time is going to prove to be maybe the most versatile and cutting edge tool in this shop. It's a Fear grinder. Jose Navarro makes a dynamite grinder. I'm going to be showing you guys a lot more stuff about that. File cabinets, storage. There's some cool stuff under this table. These are all the bottom tools that came with the blacksmith gear I got. Zillions of them. Bending forks and fullers and hot cuts and hardies and swedges and riveting headers and just all kinds of treasures. I got mandrels in there for axe eyes and all kinds of stuff. Built the table. Screws. You know, punches and drifts and chisels are key to blacksmithing, but how to store them, and then if I was going to take my blacksmithing out on the road, you know, to community events or something, it's nice to be able to take your tools. So that works pretty good. So this is the way I laid out my forging area, and I like it. When you build your blacksmith shop, you've got to think about what your workflow might be and see how other guys do it. Coal forge, bam, to the anvil. Post vise, bam, to the anvil. The anvil is also handy to the propane forge and to the power hammer. Quench tank for quenching swords is convenient to the big forge. You got to spend some time thinking about how to lay out your shop, no matter what kind of work you're doing. All the blacksmith tools you see in here virtually, essentially, came to me out of that roundhouse trove. Clapper dies and travelers, floor cone. So you guys have already figured out that Cy Swan is a wizard. So for my 50th birthday, he made me that Luckenheimer steam whistle. He got on the internet, found the specifications, and that is an exact rendering of the small variety of a Luckenheimer steam whistle, turned out of a piece of brass. I got him a brass propeller shaft 10 years ago or so, and he turned that thing out. Yes, that's awesome. So this power hammer, Chambersburg General Utility Hammer, is pneumatic, and it's really pneumatic. It takes just a ton of air, 90 pounds at 90 psi. The air comes up to the power hammer underground because I built and buried a storage container right here, holds about, maybe 200 gallons of air, so that the hammer gets the initial gulps right away while the compressor is coming up to speed. Let me show you the compressor. So that makes 125 cubic feet per minute. which is just about what it takes to run that hammer. I think, you know, it burns about maybe 8 gallons in an 8-hour day, gallon an hour. That's pretty cheap. I mean, compared to bringing in the electricity and the 3-phase power that it would take to compress that with electricity. So it may not look like it, but I've actually reclaimed this space, and this is fairly efficient storage of my sort of steel inventory. You're looking at high carbon steel over there. Mystery metal, I mean, I don't know exactly what those alloys are, but those springs and those bearing races are all hardenable, heat-treatable steel for tooling and blades. This is just an assortment of mild steel sections. It's better to store your mild steel cutoffs on end rather than on their side, because you can look in there and see in a moment what the sections are. Now, I could civilize that, but it becomes a question of why. You know, it works pretty good. One of the cool things about a pole barn is you got columns all over the place that you can hang stuff on. It's pretty easy to add, you know, to partition and to add and to modify. Let me show you what's back in here. Just a little bit of controlled, rodent-free storage. Those were given to me by a friend. Lighting fixtures can be made with old lanterns like that. One of the uses for this corner of the shop is I've got a bunch of lumber stored up there. Hardwood, oak, and black walnut that I sawed on my mill 25 years ago. Here's an example. Oregon black walnut's a nice material. I used some pieces off this board to make the handles for the tomahawks that I just shipped to my friend in Las Vegas. So this area is primarily sort of holdover from my contracting. Hangers, fasteners, paints, stains, sealers, caulkings, Simpson connections, snap ties, and all kinds of things. You can never have too much storage. You know, back to the thing between gravel and concrete. I have 3 different pieces of concrete in here. I have this portion that goes under my drill press and in the fabricating area. I've got that portion that's in the storage area, and then I have the crane. All 3 of those are at the same elevation. If the time comes that I feel that I have enough money and time and interest and energy to pour my shop with concrete, make a uniform floor elevation, I can do that and everything will match. But I will never put concrete in my blacksmith area. Gravel has a lot to offer. It is easier on your feet and on your legs and on your back when you're working on it through the day because of its irregularity, its yielding. It's not a rigid substrate. In a blacksmith area where you're working at speed, fighting the loss of heat, you can drop a set of tongs, you can drop a hammer, you can drop a chisel, it's not going to hurt it, and I never have to sweep. I mean, how do you beat that? In a forging area, frankly, I recommend clay or gravel. So in the woodworking area, I've got a wood floor, joists and subfloor and plywood on the top. And the reason for that is, in a woodworking area, if you drop a piece of wood or a piece of woodwork or an edged tool, a concrete floor is going to leave a mark that you may not be able to sand out. So we've got wood in the wood shop, we've got gravel in the blacksmith shop, we've got concrete in the fabricating area, each for its own set of reasons, and always considering money, of course, and what the material on hand. I'm just about to expand this. I'm going to pop this wall out. The sheeting is going to go out to the outside footprint of the building. Enclose this, extend the floor, balloon the wall up to the roof diaphragm, and turn this into a more civilized space with some more room for lumber storage and setting up some more tools. So I've got a problem with storage. I keep stuff. But I've got it sorted down to where this is all pretty much worthwhile stuff. The thing with storing stuff is you have to be able to find it. Cataloging it, that's a problem. But we're doing better. This has become an increasingly important part of my shop. It's a recliner, okay? May I confess to you that most afternoons I come in here and stretch that out and grab a 10 or 15 minute nap before I get back at it. Love to have it. So this corner of the shop is a curious blend of fabricating space and completely chaotic storage, okay? I don't even really know how to represent it. This table is awesome. You know, it's kind of a very unique fabricating table made of I-beam, 6x6 I-beam. It's been machined flat. It's very flat, so I can clamp and jig up all over the place. Got miscellaneous old hand tools and a sample of a railing system. I got saws and shovels and axes and Pulaskis. No, that's a wolf trap. I don't know what size that is, but I wouldn't want it on my foot.
There are a bunch of those.
Yeah, I got a bunch of other traps down here. Jump traps and muskrat traps and all kinds of traps. Got air compression up there just for sort of for shop air. I guess it makes sense to save storage space. It's a little hard to service that compressor. I do a lot of post to beam connections. So these are different textures and treatments. There's a corbel to go underneath a granite countertop. And there's a sample for a pot rack that we made a few years ago, a little copper hook. So that's forged out of a 1x1 bar. Daryl Nelson is just a masterful blacksmith up in the Tacoma, Seattle general area. He's done some really nice work creating animal heads and shapes, and Cy and I was following Cy's lead and he was following Daryl Nelson's lead. Here's a semi-practical application of that. There's a sample for a railing that we put in a log cabin. This is my radial drill. You know, I worked a long time with a little drill press, and it's like everything else. When you finally spring for the right tool, the second question after how in the world does this work that you ask yourself is, why in the world didn't I get this years ago? This is an Arboga Maskiner made in Sweden. It's a force multiplier. I cannot tell you the ways that this gives me hope for being able to continue to work as an old man. It's just a blessing in my life to have this crane. Move this back out of the way. Bandsaw, fly press. I guess that's most of what's going on in here. There's layers and layers of stuff. The more you look, the more there is. Various treasures stored in those boxes. These are the boxes that bees come in. Did you know that you can buy boxes of bees? So that's the shop tour, or at least the first shop tour. I imagine we'll do this again as the shop continues to evolve. We intend to share the message of the benefit and the value of craftsmanship with the whole world. We're just really glad you're here, and if you can help us, it would mean a lot. Thanks for watching.